Okay, folks, let's get one thing straight. Donald Trump is a racist. He is a white supremacist. In my mind, and possibly not yours, there is no doubt of those facts. Now, there has been a firestorm somewhat of comments made by this individual. For those of you who do not recognize her, this is Jemele Hill, and she's got a show with Michael Smith on ESPN. Now, she was going back and forth yesterday with a quote-unquote white supremacist, and she specifically called out Donald Trump and named him as what he is, a goddamn racist white supremacist. Well, all of a sudden, here we go with people calling for her to be fired, etc., etc., etc. And unlike Stephen A. Kuhn at ESPN, she refused to apologize for her comments. What she did was she stated that her comments were hers personally and did not reflect the ideals of ESPN, but she didn't back away from her comments. Well, guess what? She wasn't suspended and she wasn't fired. But Stephen A. Kuhn, when he gets up on ESPN regarding his comments regarding black women or women in general pushing the buttons of men, and some white woman comes out there and starts crying that he's misogynist, etc., 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 and ESPN calls him in, instead of standing up for himself, he decides that he's going to turn around, bend over, and take it up the ass, i.e. Issue a public apology, and then they still suspended his ass for 2 months. Now, I'm going to play a couple of clips, and whether I get a strike or not, I don't really give a shit. But I'm going to play a clip from the used car salesman's daughter, Sarah Huckabee, where she expresses self-righteous indignation regarding Jemele's comments, and states that she, that the offense, quote unquote, should be a firing one. Unfortunately for her dumb, racist, white ass, her boss has made similar, if not even more explosive comments regarding people of color in the past. But she expects an apology from this woman, yet her boss to this day still has not apologized for his comments about the Central Park Five, or the fact that he was pushing the birther issue, which was basically a slap in the face of all black men of any prominence or accomplishment in this country. Basically stating that if you could aspire to the highest office in the land and you are black, you must not be a citizen. You must be a Muslim. You must hate America. That's a bunch of bullshit. But anyway, I'm going to play the clip from Sarah Huckabee's news conference yesterday, where she was specifically asked about the comments and her statement. And then I'm going to jump to News One Now with Roland Martin. They did a major discussion on the issue. And as you can see, the Republican representative, and you know, I'm not blaming the Asian woman, because it wouldn't matter what Republican you stuck up there, not a single one of them, okay, would basically side with Jemele Hill regarding this, and they would all feign ignorance as far as the blatant and out-and-out racism of Donald Trump. All right, bear with me for a second. I got to change locations. Okay, I found the section that I was referring to, where this toad-faced looking biatch basically has the nerve to state that Jemele Hill should basically be fired. Here we go.
A couple times today, you sort of emphasized diversity in the West Wing, and you talked about the president being very clear after Charlottesville and denouncing all hate. I just wanted to read a comment from an influential African-American sportscaster from ESPN yesterday who said, Donald Trump is a white supremacist who has largely surrounded himself with other white supremacists. His rise is a direct result of white supremacy, period. He's unqualified and fit to be president. Why do you think, do you have a reaction to that? Is the president aware of that comment? And
I'm not sure if he's aware, but I think that's one of the more outrageous comments that anyone could make, and certainly something that I think is a fireable offense by ESPN.
If the president was so clear, as you said, why do you think influential African-American figures are saying things like that?
I'm not going to speak for that individual, but I know that the president has met, again, with people like Senator Scott, who are highly respected leaders in the African-American community. He's committed to working with them to bring the country together. I think that's where we need to be focused, not on outrageous statements like that one.
All right, so let's unpack this one. Okay, number one, you judge a person by their actions, not just their words. Okay, now it is a fact that Donald Trump's daddy was a Klan member. That is a fact. And you do your own research. I've done videos on it in the past. That's a documented fact that he was a Klan member. That's one. Number two, it is a documented fact that Donald Trump and his daddy discriminated against people of color, specifically black people, in as far as housing is concerned. They would not rent housing units to people of color, specifically black people, no matter what their economic situation was. And Donald Trump lost not one, but two lawsuits by the Department of Justice as far as discriminating against black people is concerned. Okay, so that's clear-cut guilty of discriminating against black people in his housing. Number three, the Central Park Five. Donald Trump took out a full-page ad calling for the death penalty against the Central Park Five as far as their involvement of the rape of a white woman in Central Park. Now, DNA evidence, the best scientific evidence that you can lay your hands on, exonerated all five of the individuals. And then on top of it, the actual rapist admitted to the crime. But Donald Trump, as recently as the past year, has stated that he doesn't believe the person who admitted to the crime. He doesn't believe the DNA evidence. He still believes that the five individuals are guilty. Number four, Donald Trump picked up the birther issue and became the birther in chief as far as running with that issue, and to this day has never apologized to President Obama for touting that particular ideology that our first quote-unquote black president was truly a United States citizen and not a Muslim, etc., etc., etc. So that is not the only evidence that we have. Donald Trump is a big fucking liar. Approximately 12 to 14 years ago, when Donald Trump was affiliated with a different party, not the Democrats, not the Republicans, but another party, and I apologize for not knowing the exact name of the party. But that was the party of David Duke. And David Duke was going to make a run for the presidency of the United States. And that particular party, of whom Donald Trump was a member, went to Donald Trump and asked him if he would be willing to run with David Duke as his vice president. Donald Trump, I guess you could say to his credit, declined to join that particular ticket, but he obviously knew of David Duke because I'm 10 years or so younger than Donald Trump, and I knew about David Duke from my childhood. So for Donald Trump to get on TV and claim that he didn't know who David Duke was a straight out lie. Now, we come to the various issues as far as racial relationships are concerned, and Donald Trump has been so mealy-mouthed regarding his condemnation of groups like the Ku Klux Klan, white supremacists, white nationalists, racism in general, that it should be a criminal offense. His latest instance of racial quote-unquote ignorance was the situation that occurred in Charlottesville, Virginia, where he tried to equate white supremacists and Nazis with people who were fighting against white supremacists and Nazis. He tried to say that they were both basically the same thing. That's a bunch of crap, and we all know that. But my problem is so many Republicans came out against the white supremacists and the Nazis, but failed to condemn Donald Trump for his lack of exactness, let us call it, in his condemnation, that in my mind there can be no recompense as far as their support, us supporting them and their support for Donald Trump. So again, for Sarah Huckabee Smith, or whatever the fuck her name is, to come out and call for the firing of Jemele Hill, you know, that is absolutely ridiculous. Donald Trump loves photo opportunities, okay? He's had photo opportunities with the presidents of various HBCUs. He's had photo opportunities with the Congressional Black Caucus. He's had his photo opportunities with his quote-unquote diversity commission. They're all photo ops, but they have not been accompanied by any definitive action, okay? Nothing. Donald Trump basically likes to give a lot of lip service, but when it comes time to putting up or shutting up, he damn sure ain't putting up. You know, but he loves to tweet, so I guess he's not shutting up either. And it really brings to mind the fact that he was talking during his run for the presidency. He claimed to be talking to black people during one of his, guess, town hall meetings or rallies, whatever you want to call it, which occurred up in Wisconsin. The funny thing about it was, he claimed to be talking to black people while he was standing in front of a damn near entirely white audience, whereas he could have gone to Milwaukee, which was about 45 minutes away from the location that he gave his town hall meeting, if you want to call it that, but he chose not to do so. Put up or shut up. Put your money where your mouth is. Actions speak louder than words. Donald Trump basically talks enough of a good game so that white people basically can close their eyes, stick their fingers in their ears, and claim that Donald Trump is not a racist. But for those of us who have our eyes open and our ears open, okay, we can hear and see the evidence that Donald Trump absolutely is a racist. He has no thought whatsoever as far as doing anything to benefit the black community, and more so than that, he has shown his support for neo-Nazis, white supremacists, white nationalists, basically the dredges of the society, both here and around the world, as far as racial intolerance is concerned. Now, I'm going to play for you the entire clip from the Roland Martin show this morning, and you're going to see the Asian Republican representative there is basically going to do what most Republicans do, which is claim that Donald Trump is not a racist She has no evidence, and she basically is going to infuriate the black people that are on the panel. Hang on one second.
More outrageous comments that anyone could make, and certainly something that I think is a fireable offense by ESPN.
Really? That's White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders yesterday, the response to the tweets from ESPN's anchor Jemele Hill for calling out Donald Trump and his racist ways. Jemele Hill, of course, in her particular tweet, there were several tweets where she was responding to someone. She said that the president is a white supremacist, criticized him and those around him. Well, that has ticked off the right. They've been criticizing her for that. And so this is the full statement. This is I want to play for you the full exchange that took place yesterday at the so in the moment I have that. In the moment I was told that we actually had that queued up, but I'll have that in just a moment. Yesterday, many people have been responding to this, first and foremost. She had actually met with ESPN. ESPN then said that they did talk to her about this. She has not been suspended. She has not been fired. She's not been reprimanded. But yesterday, she also responded. This was her only statement, not on her television show with Michael Smith. This is what she tweeted yesterday. Let's go right to it. She said this here. Please pull it up, please. Her statement. Thank you. So to address the elephant in the room, facts. My comments on Twitter express my personal beliefs. My regret is that my comments and the public way I made them painted ESPN in an unfair light. My respect for the company and my colleagues remain unconditional. So now let's play the full comment from Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
You mentioned a couple times today, you sort of emphasized diversity in the West Wing, and you talked about the president being very clear after Charlottesville and denouncing all hate. I just wanted to read a comment from an influential African-American sportscaster from ESPN yesterday who said, Donald Trump's a white supremacist who has largely surrounded himself with other white supremacists. His rise is a direct result of white supremacy, period. He's unqualified and fit to be president. Why do you think, do you have a reaction to that? Is the president aware of that comment? And
I'm not sure if he's aware, but I think that's one of the more outrageous comments that anyone could make, and certainly something that I think is a fireable offense by ESPN.
If the president was so clear, as he said, why do you think influential African-American figures are saying things like that?
I'm not going to speak for that individual, but I know that the president has met, again, with people like Senator Scott, who are highly respected leaders in the African-American community. He's committed to working with them to bring the country together. I think that's where we need to be focused, not on outrageous statements like that one.
So outrageous, huh? Okay. Reverend Al Sharpton, TMZ caught up with him, and he shared his thoughts about what Jemele Hill had to say and what he would do if ESPN tried to move against her.
Let's not forget, ESPN is regulated by FCC. FCC commissioners are appointed by the White House, so it's a whole different level of intimidation on media outlets when you have the press secretary saying it, and it violates this young lady's First Amendment right.
What would you say to Jemele Hill right now?
Stand strong. If they take you out, many of us in the civil rights community will stand up for you and take ESPN off of our service.
Well, also yesterday, the National Association of Black Journalists released a statement offering full support for Jemele Hill. This is what they put out. The National Association of Black Journalists supports Hill's First Amendment rights on all matters of discussion within and outside the world of sports, as they do not impinge on her duties as a host and commentator. So that was the second part. This is what the first part of what they said. Jemele Hill is an award-winning veteran journalist who has distinguished herself for having insightful opinions and perspectives on a variety of topics. Having been successful along those lines for 20 years, she has been able to connect with viewers on ESPN as well as on various social media platforms. And again, that was a full statement put out by the National Association of Black Journalists, of which Jemele is a member, as well as myself. A number of people also have come to her support, including NFL player Colin Kaepernick. He sent this tweet out: "We are with you, Jemele Hill." Also, Michael Wilbon put out a quote, also making it perfectly clear that he's. And so that's what's going on in this country. Now, let's talk about it with our panel. A. Scott Bolden, legal analyst and chairman of the National Bar Association's PAC. Sue Zoldak, founding CEO of the Zoldak Agency. Rashad Robinson, executive director of colorofchange.org. All right, folks, so here's what's interesting here. So you have Stephen Miller, who Richard Spencer, the white supremacist, said Stephen Miller was his role model at Duke. You have Sebastian Gorka, okay, who has no problem wearing regalia tied to Nazi-loving organizations. You've got Steve Bannon, who said that Breitbart was the home of the alt-right, which frankly are white supremacists. These are all people Donald Trump has hired. This White House has no problem with them. Gorka is gone, Bannon is gone, but Stephen Miller is still there right now. You've got somebody Trump is going to put at the USDA, who was one of the biggest birthers. You've got the President of the United States himself, who lied about the birth certificate of the president, who put that crap out, which was racist crap, which contributed to these people running around talking about he wasn't American and he was a Muslim. So who the hell are they to have the audacity to say somebody should be fired when you have that sort of nonsense going on in this White House?
Don't forget about the AG, too. You missed him, the little wizard over at the Department of Justice. Attorney General.
I mean, there's zero evidence that Donald Trump is a white racist. Now, should someone be fired over
evidence.
No, there is
empirical data.
No, there is not.
There is empirical data. You just heard
Kim, let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question.
My name's Sue.
Kim,
But
I'm sorry. Sue, I'm sorry. I know, I don't know why. So Sue, I need you to explain this to me. He hires Steve Bannon, who says that Breitbart is the home of the alt-right and they're white supremacists.
Alt-right is not equivalent to white supremacy.
Yes, they are.
No.
Yes, they are.
That's something that you're saying.
No, who is one of the alt-right? Who is one of the alt-right leaders who I had on this show? Richard Spencer. Is he a white supremacist?
He is. He has said he is.
He's
That's
what?
different.
You gotta believe when people show you who they are too.
Has Donald Trump?
See, that's why I really get ticked off when they bring these stupid ass Republicans in, and when you point out and give them solid evidence of your position, okay, and they still basically try to deflect or dance away from it. Richard Spencer is a white supremacist. He is a white nationalist. He was mentored, okay? He was mentored by Bannon, okay, who in his own words stated that he, in his organization, Breitbart, is the foundation for white supremacy, white nationalism, okay? Stephen Miller, if you do any research at all, it is clear that he is a white supremacist. Yet, this woman has the audacity to get up there and dispute the words of a white supremacist. And the words are that he is a white supremacist, and she wants to dispute him acknowledging that he's a white supremacist. So this is part of Trump's base, okay? This is that 30 or 33% of people in America that no matter what goes down, no matter what Trump says or does, that they are going to be with him and ignore any relative fact regarding any wrongdoing on his part.
Said I'm a white supremacist.
He is certainly supportive of white supremacists.
You have white supremacists.
There's good people there, and he's retweeted white supremacist Twitter rants during his campaign.
And he's done that, correct?
Exactly.
That does not say that he believes that white people are superior to black people.
Here's what I'm trying to.
He actually does.
He does.
He's actually done a couple of things. He's going as far back as not renting to black people, being reprimanded by the Department of Justice, to everything he's done with the Central Park Five, and never apologizing. Over and over again, he showed us who he was, and we have to listen. But this is also part of a larger project that's happening on the right wing. That if you call someone or you call someone a racist or call out the truth or talk about racism, you are in fact a racist. And this is part of a larger project to prevent us from actually being able to talk about the real concrete harms, the real problems in our community, the real problems that racism causes. Donald Trump, over and over again, is a 70-year-old man that has showed us time and time again what he believes about race, what his worldview is on race. He has put people in positions time and time again to prove that. And for you to come on air and look at the viewers and say that Donald Trump is not a racist is like completely unfortunate.
I think we're glossing over the other point that she is a sportscaster and she is a role model in her community. And this is not a place where she should be, as a representative of the sportscasting community or of ESPN, to be saying anyone's a white supremacist.
Okay, now real quick. She, at the point, she will, I guess, as long as she's employed by ESPN, excuse me, as long as she works as a sportscaster, that is not going to change. She did not make those comments under the auspices of ESPN, i.e. being on the air on her ESPN program. She made her comments as a private person who happened to be employed by ESPN. There is a major difference. And then she issued her statements that her comments were her own personally and did not reflect the attitudes or opinions of ESPN. So your argument just went out the goddamn window.
One second. Make me try to understand this here. I'm just trying to understand this here.
Sure.
Are you trying to say that because she's in sports she can't talk about public policy?
No, I'm just saying she has a role, a public persona that she can't separate that from.
I'm sorry. Are you trying to say again that because she covers sports, she's not a spokesperson. She's the host of a television show. Because she's not a spokesperson. She's not a spokesperson for any community. She's not a spokesperson for the sports community. She's a host of a television show, like I am. She shouldn't comment?
No.
Really?
Did something happen to her?
Hold on 1 second. She shouldn't comment.
Donald Trump do
Hold on. She shouldn't be commenting. Let me ask you a question. Who was a co-host of a town hall on an HBCU campus with the 44th President of the United States?
I don't know.
She was.
Well, in that role.
No. So what does that? So what does that tell you? What that tell you is, if she was the co-host of a town hall with the 44th President of the United States, I would think she could comment on the 45th President of the United States. And so I'm trying to understand.
She has no actual proof that he's a white supremacist.
Here's the deal. So let me ask you a question. So let me ask you a question. The White House. The Congress passed a resolution condemning white supremacy, condemning racism, calling what happened to Heather Heyer domestic terrorism. It's been 48 hours. This White House refuses to even say if Trump is going to sign that. I'm sorry, how hard is this?
Okay, real quick regarding that resolution that was passed by Congress. During that same press conference with Sarah Huckabee Smith, one of the first questions she was asked was, and that was yesterday now, is the president going to sign that resolution? And she said, absolutely, as soon as it hits his desk. Well, guess what? It was already on his desk, and it remains on his desk at this moment. So now, who's lying? Did Sarah Huckabee tell a lie that Trump was going to sign it as soon as it hit his desk? Apparently so. And this stupid bitch basically can't see the forest for the goddamn trees. He doesn't want to sign the damn thing. Okay, if he had wanted to sign it, he would have held a press conference as soon as the paperwork came in, with cameras and everything clicking and flashing, with him signing off on the resolution. He has damn press conferences for everything else of mediocre import.
That's not a definition of being a white race.
Scott, go ahead. Well, here's the deal. You know, she has.
You can't even say that you're going to sign a resolution unanimously passed by Congress calling out white supremacy, calling out racism, calling what happened in Charlottesville domestic terror. If you can't even say, I'm going to sign that, what the hell is your problem?
Bro, why are we debating?
This is hilarious.
We don't need Sue to agree with us to know we're right about him being a white racist or a sympathizer or someone who equivocates in regard to white hate groups. The data is there. His words are there. Let's stop debating it. Now, with regard to Jemele, a couple things are going on here. One, she never loses her First Amendment right to speak her mind on politics, and it was on her own private Twitter account. As an employer, the ESPN has a real issue because you cannot affect her First Amendment right to speak her mind, which is why her statement said it may have put ESPN in the false light. But don't look for ESPN to say too much about Jemele as far as firing or terminating and what have you.
Well, that's not true. No, Scott,
Right.
Scott, ESPN fired Kurt Schilling.
I said don't look for her, don't look for them to affect her employment because this was done on our personal time.
Scott,
you can't interrupt me if you want me to finish my point.
When Kurt Schilling, who works for ESPN, made some personal comments on his own pages and was fired by ESPN.
Yeah.
And as someone who gets people fired for stuff, I'm telling you, like, you can, no, I mean, as someone who, like, gets people fired for stuff, companies can fire people. If I say something on the air right now that, like, my organization doesn't approve of it, board of
Let me
directors,
finish. I will draw the distinction, since I'm the only one on the panel who's ever defended or prosecuted employment claims on this
But he
panel.
also got folks fired.
He has. I'm saying with Jemele, it's very different. That's why they haven't moved efficiently or effectively against her, because she did it on her own time. It was she has her First Amendment right. Hold on. And secondly, there is empirical data to support the accuracy of what she was saying.
You might be a lawyer, but you're wrong.
No, I'm not wrong about that.
Folks have been fired for making
they hadn't
by ESPN.
In this case.
Okay.
Okay, you know, see, that's where the hubris of Roland Martin comes into play, and I'm just calling it the way it is. Scott Bolden is an attorney. Roland Martin is not. Scott Bolden has represented and fought against companies that have tried that crap. Roland Martin, in this particular case, may think he knows what he's talking about, but I think I'm going to fall down on the side of Scott Bolden as far as the reason why ESPN is not and will not take action against Jemele Hill.
Scott, there's a difference between saying it's not going to happen and saying they can't.
Yes.
The fact of the matter is they can't.
I'm telling you they may, but they would face significant exposure if they did in this particular circumstance.
Okay. Here's the bottom line is here. For the White House to stand there and make this comment is utterly nonsensical. It makes no sense at all. I was going to talk to Congresswoman Karen Bass about the House passing this whole issue of police forfeiture. I do, though, I want to talk to her about that. I do quickly want to go to her to get her comment on this. The fact that Congresswoman Bass, the White House, would be so adamant about what Jemele Hill said, but say nothing about Stephen Miller, say nothing about protect Sebastian Gorka for so long, hire this dude at the USDA who is an absolute birther, who's made all kinds of race-based comments. The White House, frankly, Congresswoman Bass, has no credibility on any of these issues.
Absolutely no credibility, and please don't forget to add in again Jefferson Boulevard Sessions. I mean, there are a number of people in the administration, including the president, who have long track records on this issue. And so just to say that it doesn't exist is just, completely inaccurate. But it's consistent because the administration lies, and we can, some reporter added it up. There's been over 1,000 lies since he's been in office. That's multiple lies a day.
I talked about the House voting on this whole issue of civil asset forfeiture, and which is basically rebuffing the nonsense of trade. So are you saying that someone should not be calling Donald Trump a racist?
I don't think you should be calling the President of the United States a racist.
Okay, I want you to hold that thought, because when we come back, we're going to talk about how many times Donald Trump has called other people in. And so the Washington Post did this very interesting story. Shelley, go to the iPad. On Twitter, Trump accuses blacks of racism 3 times as often as whites. So here's what's interesting, Sue. I want to go to you first. Because in here, Donald Trump tweeted on August 12, 2013, not only is Touré a racist and boring, he's a really dumb guy. Those were some comments that Touré was making to Trump on Twitter about bankruptcy. This is what he tweeted on August 30th, 2013. In that time, Warner has HBO with really dumb, racist Bryant Gumbel, and I mean dumb, and no CBS, which fired Bryant. I am switching buildings. Also, he called former President Donald Trump a racist. See June 2007 speech. Is Obama a total racist? So here's my question. Here's my question to you, Sue. Should we fire Donald Trump for calling somebody a racist?
You're assuming that I would support him saying it because he's the president.
No, actually, I'm not assuming that. I'm simply asking you the question.
I didn't say we should fire Jemele. I'm just saying I don't think it's appropriate for her to say that.
So was it appropriate for Trump to say that?
No, of course not.
Should Trump apologize for those comments?
I mean,
Should Sarah Huckabee Sanders from the White House podium apologize for the past comments of Donald Trump?
No, it's not her responsibility to apologize on behalf of what Donald Trump tweets. No.
I'm sorry, but Rashad,
that's her job.
Rashad, ESPN apologized on behalf of the tweets of Jemele Hill.
And Sarah Huckabee Sanders, if nothing else, she shows up each day to speak for the president and the White House. Otherwise, there's no reason for her to show up at the podium. We don't really care what Sarah Huckabee Sanders thinks. We care about what the White House and the president.
Right.
So Scott, isn't this quite hypocritical? Isn't this quite hypocritical of Donald Trump and anybody speaking on his behalf for him to call somebody out for calling him a racist when he in turn done the exact same thing on numerous occasions, when he even called the former president, the number 44, a racist?
Exactly.
So I mean, I'm just saying.
But this White House and this president, over his campaign and his leadership, has been full of hypocrisy. I mean, that's the base of who he is. The reality, though, is this, and is that whether it's appropriate for the White House and the Speaker of the White House or the press person for the White House to weigh in on a private matter, that's outrageous, quite frankly, and really is inappropriate.
What's the private matter? She did it publicly.
Yeah, she did it publicly, but this is a private employment issue for ESPN and Jemele.
No. She said she did it on Twitter, which is public.
I understand.
So it wasn't like this was said at the office
Sarah
to a colleague.
Huckabee said she should be fired. Okay, that's a private decision between ESPN and Jemele, and they shouldn't be weighing in on it.
I do want to show that. Here's the other tweet, October 3rd, 2012. Y'all gonna love this one. This is from Donald Trump. Obama's 07 speech, which Daily Caller just released, not only shows that Obama is a racist, but also how the press always covers for him. Rashad, final comment on this. I'll be waiting for Trump's apology for calling the 44th president of the United States a racist.
And it'll be a waste of your time to wait because it will never happen. And the more we recognize that we have to not direct our stuff at Trump, but direct it at all the enablers that make him possible, that's when we start to see the type of change possible.
And this is also why yesterday the conversation that we had here on this show, and I contend this, is that one of the reasons why I very rarely say racist. White supremacist is this, because no, I'm gonna hit you on your issues. I'm gonna lay out all the positions you've taken, and then go, this pretty much is what you are. Because again, the debate then becomes racist, not racist, white supremacist, not white supremacist. But your actions speak clearly as to who you are and your intentions. And to your point, Donald Trump started his career by discriminating against black folks. The Department of Justice had to come in and go after him, and he has tried to explain that away, but the fact of the matter is, you can't, when they say it, no, y'all are discriminating against black people.
They would put C on the top of the applications for colored, on top of applications from black people who were coming in for homes, so that they could take that C application and put it in the garbage can. But Sue doesn't believe that that's white supremacist, or we shouldn't call it out. Maybe we should just take it and say, thank you, Mr. Trump, because that's what we're supposed to do. Whatever it is, Sue, that you think, if people don't call out white supremacy and also build the power to push back, we don't change things, and we actually don't end up on this panel at all.
Sue, quick comment. Scott, final comment, going to break.
Look, I don't think anybody should be calling anybody anything.
Unless they actually are?
No, I mean, you know, that's
democracy. That's what? Oh, go finish thought.
He did not get elected because he's a white supremacist.
He got elected, but guess what? People excuse that, and he's not president.
I don't think people are excusing it.
Oh, yes, they did. Oh, my God. Scott, go ahead. 20 seconds, Scott, go ahead.
Listen, Donald Trump has a rich history in trafficking and racism, so I don't know why we're debating it. The reality is, though, white privilege allows him to say these things about Obama, but then white privilege allows others who put him in office to forgive him and say these comments are race neutral. But if the comments have a racial disparate impact on people of color, they're racist, and that's racism.
I shall be awaiting Sarah Huckabee to issue an apology from Trump for his previous comments.
Stop waiting.
And if I wait, I might get some good sleep in, because it's going to be a while.
Yeah.
Okay, so, folks, in closing, Jemele Hill, stay strong. Yeah, I got to be honest with you, I wasn't all that hot about your show. You know, I watch it sporadically, but in this instance, when you have said something privately, well, I take that back, publicly, but off of ESPN time, I fully support your right to make your statement, and in particular, since it's true, and if ESPN decides to screw with you, I'm just hoping that people like your partner, Michael Smith, the basic civil rights leaders that are left, the Color of Change, various black and brown organizations come to your defense, and we put the heat on ESPN. But somehow I think they want to stay as far away from this one as possible. Because, number one, they do not want to put themselves on the wrong side of this issue. But number two, and probably more importantly, they don't want to piss off their white supremacist viewers. So them staying neutral and as quiet as possible works in their best interest. But again, it's not the right thing to do.